Hello, dear friends. We are, for the first time, live, I think, on Instagram, Facebook, and also YouTube. We are contemplating, and you can comment and add your voice to the discussion about whether or not it would be helpful for you if we had a weekly live broadcast, maybe just on YouTube, not on all three platforms, just on YouTube, to get together and virtually at least be together in these trying times that we are all facing. We want to try to help and contribute to all of the anxiety and struggles that are going on throughout the world. And of course, there's not really much I can contribute. I'm not a virologist or a epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any scientific data to help us understand this pandemic more, or to offer any clear or empirical data on what we should or shouldn't do. I think the situation is also very different in very different places. So depending on where you are, there'll be a different also set of guidelines and rules for what you should be doing. And so my advice in all of that is, of course, to do your best to get accurate information and to follow the guidelines of doctors and scientists who have good intentions to help prevent the spread of this disease. So I don't really have any of that to offer, but I do have some Zen and tea, and so maybe we could have weekly broadcasts on YouTube, and I could help in the way that I can, the little that I can, which is Zen and tea, and maybe that would be of help. You can decide, and if you guys are interested, we're happy to do it and help in whatever way we can. We really can't do much other than that. Help with tea and help with a little bit of Zen. So that's kind of the purpose of this, other than just to be together virtually. Maybe we could share a little bit of experience, strength, and hope, and maybe it'll be of use to some of you, though not much. It's not a vaccine or something. So first and foremost, because my advice is all going to be Zen, so it's all going to come from a place of practice and be more about the psychological impact of all this, if you will, and some skills to navigate that aspect of it, not the social or medical aspect of it, because none of that is in my power, and I'm not an authority, so I can't speak really to any of that. I think first and foremost, it's really important to have a clear understanding of fear, and to talk a little bit about fear. There's that beautiful Seneca quote that much more of our suffering is in our imagination than in reality, which when we begin to practice Zazen and meditation and go inward, we very much realize that not just fear, but a lot of our mental suffering happens in our mind. There's the situation, and then there's our reaction to it. And our reaction to it is often most of the, if not all of what we actually suffer from. But there's also good fear. There's fear that the fear is a part of evolution. It's a natural and absolutely essential aspect of the human psyche. Long ago in the savannah, our ancestors learned that when the grass moves, you go back up the tree. And the grass could be moving because of the wind or a small creature, but it also can be a lion. So you don't take chances. You go back up the tree. And similarly, if it's late at night and I'm walking down the street and a bunch of guys are coming and they're making a bunch of noise, I move to the other side of the street. And it could be they're just celebrating because their football team won. But this fear is a response to clear and present danger, or the potential of clear and present danger. So there's a potential of clear and present danger, and then there's a natural instinctual fear that arises. And again, it could not be a lion. Those people that are making lots of noise at night could be benign, but it's still healthy to react because those are my instincts telling me to do so. And in this case, we certainly have a very real clear and present danger, and so there is going to be some of that instinctual fear, and it's okay to be afraid, it's okay to feel not okay, it's okay to be anxious. But then there's another type of anxiety, which is like carrying that fear beyond its moment, right? Beyond when it's helpful, or when there's an actual decision or action that can be taken to prevent the danger, right? So back to our example, the guys are walking down the street and they're making lots of noise, and so in this instance I can do something to avoid danger based on my instinctual reaction, my fear. I move to the other side of the street and walk down. But then if I get home and I can't sleep and I'm having nightmares because I'm worried about guys that are walking around on the street and potentially going to harm me in the future, or which is an imaginary time, in some imaginary time and I'm carrying that fear. Now actually what I'm reacting to is the fear of is a mental, psychological, created fear. This is more like a kind of like scheming to get certain results. We want the world to be other than it is, and so we are like scheming to get certain results. This kind of fear, and this kind of fear will result in very unhealthy expressions, like the fear mongering of media, which has been going on for decades, not long before this pandemic. Whatever there is fearsome, they latch on and amplify it. There's also the kind of numbness of modern society, where people are taking drugs or sex or video games or movies or whatever, which is really, when you boil it down, is really just a fear of feeling. People are afraid to feel, so they want to be numb. So that kind of psychological fear, which is that kind of reaction to the projections and images of my mind, that's the kind of fear that is not as healthy. In this instance, it's challenging because when we project something completely, when it's in our mind, it's more easy maybe to wake it up or to transcend it. But when there's an actual danger and it's lurking and real, then the distinction between the imaginary projections in the mind and the actual situation can get really confused and difficult and challenging to work with. Which is why I think this time is the time for our practice to shine. This is like game time for us as a species and as individuals. you know, C.S. Lewis often talked about, especially in relation to the death of his wife, how his practice and his faith had, up until that point, they had been like a rope that you used to like keep a box closed, or some other household use, and that now he was hanging from that rope. And so he was saying, like, your practice, you don't really know how strong your faith and your practice is until you're hanging from it over a precipice. You don't really know how strong that rope is when you're just using it to tie boxes closed. It's not until you're actually hanging from that rope that you know really how strong that practice is, how strong those beliefs are, how strong that faith is. So until you're really, really tested, you can't know your mettle. In martial arts, we say, like, you have to come against a hard surface to know where you stand. In your practice, you have to come against something, and then you realize, this is where my practice is. So this is a call to arms. This is a call to awaken, to practice. And not only is the practice what's going to inform how we relate and orient to this situation, but actually this is also a time for more practice. It's a time for more meditation, more tea, more wisdom, because our minds always go with our environment. When I make tea, it's the water and the fire and the teaware and the type of tea I use and my skill and my mind that all come together to brew that tea. But it's also the place, right? Think about how different tea would be in different places. When my teacher gives he's retired now, but when he used to give teachings about how to enjoy a fine cup of tea, he would talk about what you need to actually prepare tea to its highest potential. You need, the right teaware, the right brewing method, the right tea, the right water, the right fire, all that stuff, but also the right place. Right? Imagine the same tea drunk in a bamboo forest or a mountain versus the same tea drunk in a foundry, in a factory, or the same tea drunk next to a beautiful, pristine river, or drunk right next to a river that is a quarter of a mile downstream from a paper factory, and there's paper dust everywhere, pollution all over the river. Obviously, the place will impact our experience. Our experience goes with the place, our place goes with the experience. When we cook, it's all the ingredients, but it's also the kitchen. And so our minds do influence the world in which we live. They influence others. A good example of that is right now, if you're resting in a state of anxiety, not the natural anxiety that is a response to danger, which is very real, but the anxiety that is mind-made. If you're resting in a lot of mind-made anxiety, you're not going to be of help to the people that are around you, especially if some of those people are children who are old enough to understand that there's a danger. They need the force of the adults around them to be like a calm energy that they can rely upon, right? So our minds very much will impact our own personal experience of these trials, but also will impact the world in some way. And so right now, cultivating your mind, practicing meditation, and praying and drinking tea and doing other peaceful and healthy activities, taking care of yourself physically and mentally so that you can deal with this anxiety, not ignore it or transcend it. That's not even really the goal. If you're doing that, your heart's not open, you're not paying attention to the suffering that's going on around the world, to the heroes in the form of doctors and nurses who are facing this every day, and facing the patients and all that goes into it, and all that they're giving and risking their lives. There's a lot of suffering going on. There's a lot of change going on for a lot of people, and so it's important we stay connected to that and that anxiety. So our practice isn't going to be about reaching a kind of peaceful, zoned out state, but working with that anxiety and working with with its after effects. In fact, we want that anxiety. You want that because you want to be able to make intelligent decisions as information comes in, which you won't do if you're not motivated by that fear. If I'm not motivated by the fear, I don't cross the street. And in some instances, those dudes are just celebrating a football game. But in other instances, they maybe are out looking for somebody to mug or something. And so I could be really protecting myself by making that, following that instinct and making that move. So we want to have some degree of fear in the face of this very real danger, because that will help us to make intelligent decisions that are for our own safety and for the safety of others. So, but the more that it's a balance issue, right? The more that goes overboard, the more it gets off balance, then our decisions start to become worse on the other end, because we start living out of panic and irrational behavior, and don't have a capacity to contemplate and to make healthy and wise decisions. So we want some, I guess, irrational fear. We want not too much, and practice will help keep us balanced and help us to work with the fears that are arising and to make good, intuitive decisions that protect ourselves and others, but not go overboard. And also, our practice right now, the more we meditate, the more we pray, the more we drink tea, the more we work on our own spirit right now, the more of a guiding force we will be for all the people around us, and the more our minds will help to stabilize the people that are in our lives and in our environments. And then also there is, something fufu, something I don't have words for, which is the way that our mind affects reality, the way that our mind affects all the other minds in the world. And in a small way, my piece can help others to deal with this situation. In the very least, if you're someone who doesn't like fufu language, in the very least, I'm one less person panicking. I'm one more person that's calm. And it is without a doubt that no matter how serious a crisis gets, the more calm everyone remains, the more easy it is to resolve, and the better the resolution will be. So staying calm, and in the least, if you disregard all the fufu stuff and the fact that our minds influence other minds, influence this world, at least I'm not contributing to the problem. At least I'm managing my own mind, but not in a healthy relationship with all that. And that will motivate me also to listen to the experts who have more data and who are doing their best to prevent the spread of this. So, obviously, obvious things like washing your hand and hands every day, and wearing masks, and distance from each other. So I think this is an invitation to practice, and I think that is also relevant on a large scale, not just on individuals. I think this is a wake-up call for all of humanity. Certainly in my lifetime, I don't think there's been a single event that has had so much human consciousness centered on it, where we're all focused on the same thing. It's like we got everybody's attention now. Whereas just months ago, everybody was off on all their infinite trips. Now everybody's on the same spaceship, planet Earth, and we're all kind of waking up to the fact that this is one world, and what a problem that begins in China affects everywhere on Earth, and that we are one people and we're together in this, one ship, and if the ship goes down, we all do. And so it'll be very interesting to see what could result from that unification of consciousness, from that focus that we all have now on the same issue, and the shifts that will have to come in our whole way of being and living and our economy. I think it's going to be very important moving forward, and most governments are already talking about instituting relief for individuals, for businesses. And I think that's a powerful shift because and not because I have some political views to the left or the right. I don't. I'm a Zen priest. I feel obligated to maybe avoid some of that. But I think that this is a call towards a social orientation towards taking care of each other, towards helping each other. And I think those relief ideas and those discussions about who to help and how to help them are good discussions, even if now they're political and people are doing them for face or for the wrong reasons. It doesn't matter. The fact is that there's discussions going on around the world about how to take care of each other and how to help each other and how we're all in this together. And so when these people are suffering, I can't just go on a pleasure cruise. That we are together in this. We all rise or fall together, and that we need to take care of each other. And that in taking care of each other, we find our real joy. We find real happiness, because ignoring others people's suffering or even causing that suffering so that I can have a better life, which is also happening in the sense that, like, those people are poor so that these people could be rich or whatever. That kind of mentality isn't the source of true joy or happiness. It won't work. And so these discussions of like how we're going to take care of each other through this problem, they have a potential to be very powerful. There's no doubt that a crisis like this can and will bring out the worst in some people. But there's also no doubt that a crisis like this can and will bring out the best in a lot of people too. And we're seeing that in the form of as I mentioned, the heroic, selfless efforts of all the nurses and doctors who are facing this disease every day and putting themselves and their families at risk, and to help in whatever way they can. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people doing a lot of other amazing things as well, donating things and etc. So like all things, there's dark and light, and you can. That's part of what I talked about managing the fears. It comes back to that same thing, right? You can focus on the paranoia and tune into it and let the mind go and into that realm, and then the darkness becomes really loud and you think it's winning or overwhelming, but actually things are always in balance. And there's a lot of the best of people will certainly be shown as this moves forward. There'll be a lot of beautiful opportunities to help and be in this together and connect and all of those things. I think the other thing that I would like to talk about today is to understand that this is not something that we are like passing through to get over, to get back to life. This is our lives. This is today, and this is now, and this is my life. And I don't want to forget the miracles of being alive, of just being alive. If you can't appreciate and celebrate the miracle of just being alive, no amount of stuff you get or keep away from will ever really satisfy you. If you can't just be happy just to sit and be alive, just to be, if that doesn't in some way satisfy you, nothing will. And that whether that be nothing will in terms of things you get, or nothing will in terms of being free of this particular danger, COVID-19, or any other danger. Nothing you can do will bring any satisfaction if you can't be satisfied to just be alive. In Zen we have a saying which is, immersed in water, you reach out for a drink. it means that we're like scrambling to get things, spiritual enlightenment or wisdom or new teapots or tea. We're always scrambling to get something when actually we're already immersed in water and we're just really just reaching out for a drink. We're already immersed in all of the conditions that are there for us to be alive. And the world is perfect as it is. And that's not heartless. I'm not trying to dismiss the suffering of the humans that are dealing with this all over the world. Certainly not. There's grief there, and it's our obligation to tune into that a little bit and pray for it and feel it because it is our own. Not even as if it were our own. It is our own. It's our reality. But grief has always been a part of human life since the beginning of time. Diseases and epidemics have been a part of human history since the beginning of time. This is one in a long line and pain is a part of life, and suffering is a part of life. And it's through that our practice is the answer to that. And not in a way of like ignoring it or alleviating it or having the pill for it, but in the way of facing it and being with it and recognizing that along with grief there is a deep gratitude to be alive, to feel that grief. To be alive enough to grieve is also alive. And so this is not something we pass over. It's not something to get through and then life begins. This is our lives. So take the time in these days. If you're practicing also, this will be easier for you to take the time to be grateful for what you have and for the people around you, and to hug them and tell them you love them, to call others, because right now things are very uncertain and people could pass away, and so it's a good opportunity to call someone and tell them you love them. And you can do that small thing. And you can also follow the guidelines of caregivers and doctors and scientists who have data to isolate and wash your hands and things, and they're in that way not put others at risk. That's almost, for me, a bigger fear is, our beloved Joyce has autoimmune problems, and so this COVID-19 could be very dangerous for her, and I would rather go myself than be responsible for her. Of course, it's not responsibility if you're transmitting diseases. The president of Taiwan recently, in her speech this week, said that it's very important that we not ostracize or turn the people who have this disease into lepers and blame them for spreading it. It's not intentional. They aren't trying to hurt anyone, especially when this disease, it seems, can be spread without any symptoms. Before the symptoms activate, you're already infectious. So some of these people who are spreading this disease don't even know they are. But if you know you have it, then obviously you need to quarantine and isolate, because you don't want what happens to you to affect other people you love, and anyone actually, even because we love all beings. So these are trying times, and I don't have much to offer. Just some of these little insights into our minds, and also an invitation to meditate more, to practice more, to pray more, to celebrate life more. Not in a way that is like rude or like you shouldn't be celebrating now. There's grief going on, but not that kind of celebrate. I don't mean like party. I don't mean throw a feast and I don't mean that kind of celebrate. That's not the kind of celebrate I'm talking about. I mean more just cultivate gratitude, a deep gratitude. When I say celebrate, that's what I'm talking about. You have a deep gratitude for the fact that you are alive, and hopefully that you're safe, and that avoiding this or staying away from this or this going away is not going to teach you to be alive. It's not going to bring you any kind of satisfaction if you can't have it right now. Certainly, my prayers are that as few people are harmed by this as possible. But the fulfillment of that prayer has no bearing on my ability to be in gratitude for life and to be satisfied by life and to be present in the moment and be awake and be here. And the more that I can do those things again, the better I am to help and serve in this situation. If you have some form of expertise, if you're a virologist or a doctor, then obviously you can have a much greater impact in this particular situation. But in the least, by maintaining my relationship to anxiety, by meditating and caring for myself physically and caring for myself mentally and caring for myself spiritually, in the least, I don't become part of a bigger problem of panic and the potential breakdown of society. I stay calm, and then that calmness could help those around me to be more calm, to stay safe, and it could also, maybe, if you are willing to open your mind to such things, it could have an influence on the world itself, especially in light of the fact that so much of the noise that we hear is completely fear-driven. And that's important. Those messages are important. And I don't even know that needs to stop. The media's job right now is to demonstrate that there's danger, so that people shift their behavior accordingly and to keep us informed. But there needs to be a balance with that. And so this is kind of game time for us as a species. It's game time for us as individuals. It's a real opportunity to practice and show up and see what our mind is made of. And more importantly, see what our practice is made up of. This is our opportunity for you to really see, what your practice, what your spiritual practice, what its metal is, what its quality is. If you're zoning out and you don't care, that's not a sign of healthy practice. But if you're caring too much and you're losing the balance of your mind, and that's affecting the way that you're relating to the people around you and to the world, and that also maybe is a sign that things are off balance. Again, we're hanging by our practice now, so it's really an opportunity to test the strength of it. And we also, as a species, are also hanging by, all of our social systems are hanging by a rope right now. All of our economy, all of our mind-made creations, which society is always a mind-made creation, around the advent of all human goings-on, around all of this, there is infinite stars and planets that are all operating free of all these problems, all this drama. And if you go down as well, there's a whole quantum level to this reality. And the subatomic particles that are flowing through this table and through T and through me are also moving and flowing free of this problem. This problem is one happening in the human realm, and it is also highlighting how all of our social structures and economic structures, the very real fact that they are mind-made, that a dollar bill is just a piece of paper unless two people agree that it has value. When we agree it has value, we can use it as a slip that represents energy, that represents value. And so all of these things are being brought to the surface, and all of these things are opportunities for things to change. It's unfortunate that it has to come at a cost, but I think human history reveals that challenge is what often brings the best out in us and what brings about change. And so, sometimes you see in science fiction movies that, like Independence Day, that when there's a crisis, this is nothing on that level, but it's something that everybody globally is facing, and all of our energy is focused on this crisis together. And so it's an opportunity for us to realize how connected we all are, and how problems that are happening over there aren't over there, they're also here. And so there's a real powerful opportunity. I watched yesterday on the Taiwanese news here that now that things are starting to, the cases in China are starting to decrease. China has, because when this crisis happened in China, they of course built and opened or converted a lot of factories to start producing like hazmat suits and masks and things like this. So they created some infrastructure to increase the production of masks and etc., ventilators and all those things that are needed, that we keep hearing in the news are needed everywhere in the world right now. So they created that infrastructure, and as cases are going down, they have started donating the majority of that to other countries. And again, I don't want to really have a discussion about the politics of any of this. Certainly there's politics involved, and when the government talks about relief for its citizens and creating financial relief for businesses and people, that there's politics in that, and that China may be doing that to get to have some PR or something. I don't know. It's certainly possible that any of that's there, but the important point is that this is a beautiful thing they're doing. And the ulterior motives of anybody is irrelevant to me. The fact that there are discussions happening around the world about how to take care of each other and how to work together, and that we're all in this together. These discussions have very beautiful potential for us to shift our way of thinking and to take this opportunity to reflect on the fact that this is one planet, and that we're all in it together, and we're all one people. And so, and now through technology and travel, everything in this world is really truly connected. And so there is no over there anymore. It's all really connected to each other. And I hope this, and I do believe that humans are inherently good, and that that our heart, when it is free of all the clouds of mind, and when it's free of the coping mechanisms that we've developed as we've all gotten bent and broken passing through this world. Or let me shift this conversation and use myself as an example and not speak about others. When I am free of the coping mechanisms that haunt my mind, that are my egoic reactions to different types of pain and different types of fear and other unpleasant experiences I've had, my so-called character defects. In Buddhism we call them kleshas. When I'm free of my kleshas and those clouds part, my heart is open and radiant and connected to all that is and to others. And naturally, in that Buddha nature, as we call it, love is there. That in that connection, what holds things together, what every poet and musician and spiritual teacher has always known, is that force that holds all the quantum parts together is love, and that love and light, it makes my actions automatically compassionate. Right? There's a famous Zen story where the two they were literally brothers, and then they both became monks, Yunyan and Dao, and they having a conversation, and they're talking about compassion, and one of the brothers says that compassion is like fluffing your pillow when you're in deep sleep. It's like a kind thing. Real compassion is like a kind thing that you do for yourself. You're not even aware you're doing it. There's not anybody like taking credit for it. It has no ulterior motive. It just happens naturally because you're doing it for yourself. So it happens naturally. So when I rest in my open heart and I feel connected to nature and to others, then my then compassion happens naturally. Just like self-preservation, it's just natural. You just naturally help others when you're in that open, connected state. And so that's heart-based living. And so when the clouds of, and I don't think I'm special or different than anyone else, which is why I can extrapolate this to others. When the clouds of the mind and all of our coping mechanisms and defensive structures that are all mind-made, when those start to part, what's left is connection and love and compassion. And so I think that this challenge, certainly this challenge, will activate the egoic defensive structures of some people, and we'll see maybe the bad side of some people, but I think a lot more people the challenge will poke through some of that mental ignorance and delusion and allow the light of connection and Buddha nature and love of nature to flow through, and love of life ultimately is what that is. It's just the love of life, love of being alive, or love of life. When you're a lover of life, you want to protect and beget more life. And so I think that will shine in us, and I hope that all of you are as safe as you can be, and that you have tea, which is the only other thing that we can do. We had planned on waiting to do this, but we wanted to also thank everyone. It seems so petty now, even though it is important to be thankful and grateful to this beautiful tea community around the world. But on March 1st, we had the fundraiser for Life Meets Life, and we wanted to do something to share our thanks with everyone. So we had a plan of something to do, and now we're doing it early, I think, just because maybe it'll help some people to bring this out in the world. Some of you know about this. There is a very special cake of tea called Joy. Joy is the best Dien Hong that I've ever had. Dien is the Aboriginal word for Yunnan, and Hong is red. So it's a red tea from Yunnan. It's from 2001, and so it's 20 years old. And it was produced by a dear friend of ours who went in 2001 to Ningxiang and made this cake from very old trees, several hundred years and even 1,000-year-old trees, between 500 and 1,500, lots of trees in that kind of range. It really is the best Dien Hong that I have ever had. In fact, in the very soon after 2003-04, we bought it all from him. Put a deposit and bought it all because it's such a magical tea. And there are some of you who have drunk it, and it's not named Joy for no reason. It's when you drink it, it's one of the most heartwarming, heart-opening teas I've ever had. The energy of it is extremely uplifting. In fact, I've brewed it for people and had people, even with no music, I've had people actually literally stand up in a session and start dancing. It has that effect on people. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful tea. And so we decided to, our plan originally was to save this tea and age it and share it with guests who come to Life Meets Life. But we wanted to do something special for the community, so we are going to sell half of our stock. So this comes from our own storage. It's not a tea that originally we had ever intended to sell. And those who have drunk it, it speaks for itself. It's a 500-gram cake, so it's also quite big. And in the beginning, it was extremely compressed. A lot of red teas are very tightly compressed because after the tea is rolled so much to make red tea, it's very sticky, and then when you compress it, it gets very tight. So they were 500 grams, but now it's loosened up over 20 years. It's easier to break up. Obviously, it's very limited amount. We only have just over 200 cakes or something, so we're probably going to sell half, which is 100. It's on the website now. I don't think for a lot of people, joy needs no introduction. For others of you, you'll just have to take my word, and if you can't get some before it's gone, which will probably be fast, and that's the other gift that we really can give to this world right now. This tea might be just a medicine that a lot of people need in their day. If you have some joy already, some of you do, so now's a good time. If you don't have joy, now's a good time to get out other great teas from their storage. Drink some more powerful teas every day. Maybe shift away from that kind of everyday teas that you were drinking and drink a little bit more special teas to remind you to celebrate. Again, not celebrate in the sense of like, obviously this is a catastrophe. It's not something to celebrate in that worldly sense. I'm not talking about a worldly celebration. I'm talking about a more spiritual, inner celebration, which is just a sense of gratitude for being alive and for having a heart that can grieve the pain of others and that can feel the struggle together that we're facing. I'm open to any questions. I think we can, if you guys are interested, we can do these broadcasts once a week throughout this crisis. We'll just do them on YouTube though, not Facebook and Instagram. So the next one after this will be just on YouTube. So you have to go there, and we can maybe have some more conversations about how we're facing this and working through it together. Any question? Again, I know I don't really have much to offer in the face of such a large problem. I'm a simple and small man, and I just have a long-term association with Zen and tea, and that association, I don't know if I'm proficient at either, but I have some degree of proficiency that I can then share with others. And hopefully that will bring some clarity and wisdom and guidance to people, and those people then make up a society, and the more we influence, the more we influence. And we are approaching issue 100, and they're 40 to 60 pages each issue, so there's thousands of pages there for you to go watch. We also have YouTube videos that you can watch, so you go to our YouTube channel, you can learn that way if you like. And then there are plenty of good tea books that you could get and start reading. Maybe in these broadcasts we could have a list of some good tea books, talk about that, or good Zen books. Zen books are good as well. So those are the ways for now that I think you could learn more. We're working on maybe having an online course that people can sign up for to learn tea when they're new. So that might be coming soon also.
Jen Marshall Schinneberger asks, are there any specific types of tea that you would recommend now?
Yeah, are there any specific types of tea I would recommend now, I guess, in light of this struggle that's going on? All tea does help the immune system. It does, especially if it's produced in a sustainable way and chemical free, right? You can't flush toxin with toxin. So if teas are produced in a way that is harmful to the earth and harmful to our own self, then obviously they're not going to help. there is a whole dynamic of this we could maybe talk about in another podcast. There's a whole dynamic of this, that this disease is also a virus. It's a product of nature, and so the whole relationship between human and nature is a very relevant issue in terms of all this. I'd rather save that for another day. But if the tea is produced well and it's produced in a sustainable way and healthy, certainly it will help the immune system. But I don't think it's going to treat or protect you from COVID-19. There's no data to suggest that, and so I don't want to in any way promote the idea that tea can prevent you from contracting this disease or treat it once you do have it, because I think that's false. What a tea practice can do is help us deal with the fears, and to be more calm and peaceful, and thereby not contribute to the other problems that are happening as a result of this pandemic. The problems of like panic buying and buying guns and other those kinds of issues we can avoid by being more calm, and we can then be a kind of guiding light for those around us, especially if you have little ones around you that need you to be that right now. And we can then have some full kind of influence, some kind of, we're all connected, and mind does affect reality, I believe. So in all those ways, being calm can help. So certainly tea will boost your immune system, and that might help to some small degree, but I don't think it's going to prevent or treat this illness. I think that's very important to state again. What it can do is be a source of spiritual cultivation and inspiration, and help. And I think that's why now it's maybe a good time to drink your better teas, to not get, as I said, maybe pull out those special teas you were saving for a special occasion. You may have thought when you put them in storage, like we thought with joy, that we were saving it for some kind of happy time. But actually the time when we need our strongest medicine is when we're facing challenge. So now is a great time to drink teas like joy. And then the effect of the qi is stronger. When you have stronger teas, they influence our qi even more, and then that will obviously change the way we flow and behave. And our body is our mind, and our mind is our body. And so how our body is how our mind is, and how our mind is how our body is. And so it can help in all of those ways. But it is very important that it not be advertised or promoted as some kind of preventative measure, or that it can treat this disease, because there's no evidence of that at all. And I would doubt it.
4 minutes left. Juliana is asking, is drinking tea dehydrating? Would we want to drink extra water if drinking more tea?
So tea is, so this someone's asking if tea is dehydrating. Because of the caffeine mostly, yes, there is a sense that tea will dehydrate. However, that doesn't really happen when you drink tea, because 99% of a cup of tea is water. So though there are chemicals within tea that do dehydrate, the fact that you're consuming also so much water just makes that impossible. I hope that makes sense. So no, you don't have to drink extra water because you're drinking tea, but I think you should drinking water is a healthy habit. So it's a good habit to drink 1 liter to 2 liters of water every day, just for your own health, and good spring water. Water is more quintessential to our health even than food. So if you're someone who's conscious of what food you eat, you should also be very conscious of what water you drink. Drinking good water is like drinking good tea, sustainably produced tea without agrochemicals. That doesn't harm the earth, doesn't harm the farmers who produce it, and doesn't harm us. In the same way, we want water that is clean and clear and good for our bodies. It makes up 50 to 70% of our bodies. So drinking good, healthy water every day is a good habit, whether you drink tea or not. But tea is not going to certainly there are chemicals in tea that are diuretic, which means that you're drinking lots of water, in other words. Is that it? Okay, we're wrapping up. If you're interested, get yourself a cake of joy. I'm sure it will be gone very quick because those that know about this will snap at this opportunity. It's really an honor, actually, for you. You're welcome. Some of you might not agree or understand or think this way, but the fact that we are selling this at all instead of keeping it all is actually a really big deal. It's unbelievable. This has been sitting on the bench next to me throughout this broadcast, and this entire time I've been able to smell it even from that meter away. It's such an unbelievable cake. One of the greatest for me in my entire life, and certainly the greatest Yenho of my entire life. So I hope you appreciate it if you can, and if not, drink some of your other good teas, and remember to appreciate being alive, and remember to stay alert and to stay focused and take care of yourself and stay safe, stay calm enough, and also stay aware enough and afraid enough, and be okay with your emotions, and be okay with the being afraid, and be okay with the with that stuff, because that's important right now. And as much as you can, follow the advice of the doctors and experts where you live, and lots of hand washing, and or masks if that's what's being recommended, or isolation, any of that. But we love you guys. Stay full of tea, stay peaceful, stay happy, and we'll try to continue these broadcasts once a week throughout this.